This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas. The information contained in this podcast is intended for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for individual professional legal advice. The podcast information was carefully compiled from vetted sources and references. However, R.O.S.E Resources Outreach to Safeguard the Elderly cannot guarantee that you will not fall victim to a scam. Let's talk about scams. It's the must-listen show for anyone who wants to protect themselves and their loved ones from scams. Every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time on K4HD Radio, Joyce Petrowski, founder of R.O.S E, and her guests will provide valuable insights and practical tips on how to recognize and protect yourself from scams. And now, here is your host, Joyce Petrowski.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Joyce Petrowski, and I'm back. I trust Brian took very good care of you guys the last couple of weeks. Don't forget to visit our website at roseadvocacy.org. You'll find all of our social media links at the top of the homepage. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll find on the left a link to sign up for the emailed newsletter, and on the right, there'll be a form to fill out to sign up for the mailed newsletter. The emailed newsletter, the one really good thing about that is every Tuesday morning at 9:15, you're going to get a Tuesday tip. And you might already know the tip, you might not know the tip. But just as important is it's reinforcing your scam prevention habits by making your healthy skepticism a habit. We need to see things, hear things, say, read, all of that multiple times before we can make things a habit. And that's what we're trying to do with those Tip Tuesdays. Today, I have a guest, Matt Mizenko. He's the managing director of Nomorobo. So let's welcome Matt.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hey, Matt. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Why don't you just take a few minutes? And I just realized as I was doing the introduction that I never got a bio from, I never got a bio. So why don't you take a few minutes and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. No problem. So I am the managing director of Nomorobo. Nomorobo is one of many companies in the space of call and text protection, as well as other types of security products. I have been in this space now for a long time, over probably 12 or going on 13 years now. Prior to being at Nomorobo, I was also at a company called Robo. Prior to that, I was at a company called Haya. I've worked on kind of both sides of the business, that being business to consumer and also business to business. Done some work kind of as part of all of those roles in the government relations space with the FCC, FTC, working on commentary and legislation and advisory capacity and stuff like that. So nice. Fraud and fraud protection and fraud prevention has kind of been my life for a really long time now.
Right. Nice. Sounds like you have a very deep background in this. Well,
indeed.
I was looking at your 2025, and I didn't print it out in color because I'm running low on ink, so it's in black and white. But
toner's expensive.
It is, especially the colored ones. Yep. So I was going through it, and lots of great information. I mean, this is. 10 or I don't even know how many pages this is, maybe 15. But one of the very first things I noticed was it said you guys blocked over 86 million unwanted robocalls just in 2025.
Just in 2025, Yep.
So is that all you do is you are Nomorobo? You're focused on robocalls. And I did notice that you have added text to it as well.
Yeah, that's correct. So we, again, predominantly focus on protecting both consumers and businesses from receiving those calls that they don't want to get. And while we started in this business, obviously as a call blocking company, that has, evolved with the times as we answer fewer and fewer calls. And, the ones that we do answer, we try to exhibit that healthy skepticism that you referred to earlier.
Yeah.
The bad guys have adjusted their tactics too, right? So
Absolutely.
The bad guys are like, well, if people aren't going to answer their phone calls, then we're going to send them texts. And so within, the past, say 18 months or so, we've spun up a really robust new practice about filtering and blocking texts as well. And, we've seen that in terms of the traffic that we're blocking, texts are getting close to being about the same as calls these days. So there's kind of been a big shift there. But, whether it's coming in as a text or whether it's coming in on a call, our main mission is to take a look at it. And if it looks risky, to make sure that you don't have to deal with it.
Got it. So I know, like with iPhones, built into it, they have where you can screen the callers, right? You can say never, which that's the setting I have because of Rose's business, right? I get calls from a lot of different phone numbers. But you could say ask for a reason, or you could say silence. And if you silence, it sends everything to voicemail. Correct. So, and Androids are, I don't think they have the option for all three of those, but you can block those or silence those callers on Android as well. But
correct.
Is what you are doing. So say somebody has your service and they get a robocall. Is it even going to make it to the voicemail where a voicemail can be left, or is it just not going to reach their phone at all?
So if it's a number that we have on one of our lists, then one of a couple of things can happen. So one thing that we can do is we can just block and hang up on the call. The other thing that we can do is we can still send it to voicemail. And really that comes down to the customer and what their level of tolerance is. So, for example, if you're someone like yourself that uses your phone quite a bit for business, you may not want it to just disappear because maybe there's a 1% chance that it is something important. So you might want to say, send that to voicemail and I'll check it out later. Other people just do not want to be bothered at all, and they will just tell it to hang up on all of those calls. And so, that's kind of what happens there. And if we don't see it on one of our lists, and we also do kind of a quick check in real time to see if there's any information from any of our partners that we might have. So if it looks not risky, then what we do is similar to what you said that Apple does, is we will send it to our screener. What makes our screener a little bit different and more sophisticated than, say, what you'll get from Apple is we're not just taking the screening and then showing it to you to decide what to do with it, though we do that. But the other thing that we're doing in the background is we're actually listening to and analyzing that audio, and we're comparing it to our database of millions of other audio, what we call fingerprints, to see if it might be a match against other robocalls that we've recorded in the past. And so again, even as that screening process is taking place, we're looking and saying, okay, what is this person saying? Does this match anything we've seen before? Yes or no. And if it does, then we'll stop the call right there and take whatever action, again, hang up or send it to voicemail, that we would do with a bad call. So there's kind of that extra level of protection. And if it passes all those checks, then we're going to put it up on your phone and it's going to say, this is Joyce calling from R.O.S.E, wanted to talk to you about the podcast. And then, the customer knows that the call's already passed a couple of checks, and they have a pretty high confidence that what they're seeing on their phone is in fact what's real. And now they can decide whether or not they want to chat.
Okay. All right. So you guys are doing all of those checks in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, literally all of that takes place within, worst case scenario, maybe a second and a half or two seconds, but it's all really quick on the back end.
Okay. And then, so if a call passes all of your checks, then it's going to ring in to, let's say me, it would ring into me. And is it going to, and then it's like a regular phone call, I could pick it up. And am I going to hear a message then from you guys saying this is so-and-so, wanting to talk about like what you just said?
You won't hear that. So you'll see that on your phone before you decide whether or not to answer it. So it'll pop up on the screen and basically say the person and who they're calling from and what the phone number is. And then once you engage with the call, it's just the same as any other phone call.
Got it. Okay. So there is a bit of a screening that the consumer does. But the call has to pass all your checks first.
Right. The call has to pass all of our checks. And then ultimately, we don't want to take power out of the consumer's hands completely, right? We want them to be able to look at it and make their own, decision. But what we're trying to do is give them the best possible information to make the best possible decision.
Got it. Well, that's mirrors what we do, right? We give them a lot of information, 36 pages worth that they can take home, and we go over and talk about and answer their questions. But and that's one of the main things we say is, this is not a one size fits all. We're not saying you have to do everything in here or any of this. You need to figure out what works best for your situation and your life, your risk tolerance, and then make a decision on what you want to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because that's the one thing is you don't want to take somebody's independence, their ability to make a choice.
Definitely
right.
Not.
And now, so one thing I did notice, you had, I got to get to the page here, a graph on the percentage of robocalls that target older consumers. And it was 59% was the 60 plus population versus 41% was the general population. And that was just last year. That's based on what you were seeing?
That's based on what we were seeing, yes.
Yeah. That's interesting. I would have, and I don't know, this might be just the way scammers are adapting, if they start seeing a lot more older adults using a lot of these services, right? Then are they going to start maybe switching their target market down to maybe the 50-year-olds and trying that out? But I guess I was expecting that to be a little higher for the older adults, like in the 60s.
Well, what we've seen happening is actually, so that shift that you mentioned is something that is starting to occur, but in a way that you might not expect. So
okay,
we've done we have a couple of fraud researchers that we have kind of on staff that watch a lot of this data for us and do a lot of the data collection and the analysis and such. And it's always been the case that seniors and older Americans are targeted more. And the main reason for that is that they have the most to lose. If you're looking to scam someone out of money, a 30-year-old who's just building their career
they just don't have it.
Yeah, they don't have a big 401k or a house or, all
unless
of that
they
stuff.
Inherited it, but that's a small percentage.
Very small percentage, yes.
Right.
It was definitely not me. So that's one of the things they do. But another thing that we've noticed is that thanks to all of the education that organizations like yours are doing, older Americans are the most likely currently to not engage with someone who is making one of these calls where they're trying to scam people. Now, that might seem counter to what we see in the news and the headlines and so on. But the reality is we've done a really good job of educating older Americans to be skeptical and be smart and not take the bait on these things. And so what we're seeing is actually the criminals have gone all the way to the other end. So in terms of who they're looking for targets, they're going, okay, well, who else is out there that we might be able to get to that maybe lives entirely on their phone, completely comfortable with text messaging, completely comfortable sending money via one of 700 apps? The kids, the 19-year-olds, the 20-year-olds, the 21-year-olds. And so
that's true.
We're seeing that is kind of just in terms of percentage of growth, that's the largest group right now in terms of growth of scams and targeting of scams, because they basically take everything for granted that they see on their phone as real or legitimate or authentic. And it's, and that generation is sending $5, $10, $20 to each other back and forth all the time.
All the time, yes.
Venmo or Zelle or Cash App or whatever. And so, and again, and another thing that makes that generation unique is they are starting to, we've seen the move from the phone call to texts. That generation is moving from texts to messaging apps, things like WhatsApp and Messenger
Oh.
and so on, which are honestly the Wild West in terms of security in a lot of different ways. And so much easier to go into those environments once you get somebody into them and extract money from them. So, you know, the seniors are doing a good enough job now that they're kind of their grandkids or thereabouts are the next big target. And those are the ones that, like, we see the criminals are really starting to change and go to in terms of their targeting.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to see that. I mean, I'm not glad that, you know, the criminals are going to another age bracket, right? But it's nice to hear that we're seeing the older adults are able to recognize and not engage and all of that. I know Arizona has always we do the FBI statistics every year, and Arizona's always in the top 10, but we have a huge retired population.
Yes.
Right. Whether people live here all year round, right? Or they're what we call snowbirds, right? They only come in during the nice part of the year, which they're not here right now.
Yep.
Because it's yesterday was 117 or something like that.
It was very hot here yesterday. Yes.
Yes. And I actually did a presentation and I heard somebody say there's a heat advisory all week.
Yep.
Right. So it's crazy. In the report, I like how you guys separate out the fraud and scam calls, but you also are able to identify the spam, which is usually, and I don't want to say they're all aggressive sales organizations, but some of them are. But a lot of businesses will, once you've signed up for it, they'll use text messaging predominantly, but they still will make phone calls. But I know I constantly get text messages from all these different places, and it's like, I don't remember signing up for this, right? And they just come every other day, every day, every week. But you're able to separate those out to say those are really spam versus what are your other ones? Your other, like weather alerts, missing person reports, law enforcement reports, political messages, and stuff like that. So is it really based on the what do I want to say, the actual message itself, to where your system determines if it's a spam or a scam?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So we have kind of three main sources that we use in our, let's call it our engine, for lack of a better term, to determine kind of what's going on with a given phone call or text. So the first is we have, lists of numbers that are publicly available, or in some cases we sort them privately, but that basically are numbers that, are effectively guaranteed to be good, can't be spoofed, and we know are legitimate. And that's things like government alerts, local police departments and sheriff departments and those sorts of things. So we have all of those that we get, in a list and whatnot. And so when we see one of those numbers, we know, basically immediately this has to go through. This is important. This is, related to public service and so on. But that's obviously, a fairly small percentage. Then the second thing we have is, of course, the feedback that we get from our customers. So, when our customers, even if our customers don't explicitly tell us that a call was good or bad, we can look at just behavior with a phone call and kind of make a determination. So for example, if we see an incoming phone call to 100 of our customers and 98 of them don't answer, 2 of them do answer and hang up within the first 5 seconds, that's a really good signal that that's a call people don't want. And on the flip side, if we see 100 calls come in and 75 people answer and they stay on the phone for a minute, that's another good indicator that, hey, this is probably a legitimate call that these people wanted. And of course, our users can provide us explicit feedback as well. When they get a call that they don't want, they can say, block this as spam and tell Nomorobo about it, right? Which is great, because getting that actual end customer human intelligence is, the best intelligence that we can get.
Right.
And then the largest source of the data that we get is from what we call our honeypot. So many, many moons ago, long before I was at the company, we leased close to 300,000 phone numbers. Wow. And basically hooked them up to, computery stuff. And those numbers are not on anybody's lists. They've never given consent. They just sit there and kind of wait for things to happen, both calls and texts. And so what happens is when a call hits one of those numbers, we are almost positive that it's going to be illegal and unwanted. And so what we do is we start recording and listening and transcribing. And as that happens, we're creating that audio fingerprint that I mentioned earlier. And we're also getting the transcription with the text, which then we can run through our engine and we can compare it against other things that we've seen in the past. And now we know how we might be able to categorize it, right? So, if it mentions any politician, that's a real easy one, right? Or if it mentions WinRed or Act Blue or whomever, right?
Right.
It doesn't matter. There are no partisan politics when it comes to asking for money. So those are easy to find. But then other things like, pest control or, end of life care or things like that. So, as we get those transcriptions and those fingerprints, we can then compare it to what we already know and what we already have, or if it's something we've never seen before, which is fairly rare, we can do some stuff to create a new category for it. But that lets us really quickly understand kind of what the context of the call is, how risky it is. Is it, like you said before, is it, dangerous and kind of scammy or fraudy, or is it just spammy where it's, somebody's trying to get you to sign up for a car detailing service or something like that. So, kind of the three of those things then combine and obviously reinforce each other positively over time as we see more and more and more and more calls, and gives us that capability of being able to give you a ideally a really nice read on exactly what is hitting your phone and how seriously or not to take it.
Okay. Now you had mentioned that if it's I think it's a phone number outside of those 300,000 that are actual scam, that are going to be scams. You're looking at it like you said, 100 people, and if only 2 people answer and they hang up within the first 5 seconds, that's a good indication that it's a spam call. Or like you said, if 75 people answer and they're on it for a minute or longer, then that's a good indication that it's a good one. You're only looking at they've answered or they haven't, and how long they're on the phone. You're not actually able to like record what they're saying.
Right. With our end customers, no, we're not doing that with our end customers, obviously, because that has its own.
No, you're only
problems.
exactly. And that's where I was looking at it, because I just a lot of conversations I've had a lot of people say, well, are they listening to my conversations? Right. That's like the first question. So I just wanted to make that clear that you are only looking, did they answer, did they not? And how long did they stay on the phone before they hung up, to determine, okay, this looks like it is a spam phone number, or this looks like it's legitimate.
Exactly. And those are, and the reason for that is those are nice generic data points. They don't give away any personal information. You don't know anything about, you don't know really anything about anybody. But it's a nice signal as to whether or not, something that you're seeing might be risky, because there are plenty of, if, think about weather delays at a school or something like that. There are plenty of good reasons to make robocalls, and for those good robocalls, there are plenty of good reasons to answer them. So, we want to make sure that those get through to their intended recipients, because just as important as blocking the bad calls is making sure that the good calls go through. Because if you have a good call that doesn't get through, you're actually more likely to remember that negatively than if a bad call gets through.
All right. I like how you guys put these actual sample call transcripts from the robocalls in here. And this was the top spam calls into your honeypot digital monitoring system. The top one was Medicare.
Yep.
And that's I'm guessing that's people just calling to inquire well, it says, it talks about the annual enrollment period, and they're offering free services and asking the questions. I'm I'm not surprised that political was up there.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that I'm looking at these and it's like legal personal injury, Google business listing. I can't tell you how many phone calls I have gotten. And as
Same.
soon as I hear them talk about, are you the owner of the business? Click, right? Because I actually did listen to it a few times to see what they wanted. And it was about the Google business listing. And I said, don't call me back again. Right. But they don't listen. They just keep calling. Auto warranty, auto insurance, solar, those
So,
are some of the,
yep.
well, home improvement, it has roofing in here. And then health insurance was at the bottom, but, and then you had the top business imposter scams in 2025, tax debt scams. That was the
Yep.
top, or yeah, that's one of the top ones.
One of the top ones.
Amazon imposters. Oh my gosh. When I talk about impersonating legitimate companies, I'm like, I always say Amazon because they're going to impersonate Amazon because they know just about everybody has an Amazon account, whether you use it or not. So they have a better chance of getting people to engage with them.
That's right.
Right? Because almost everybody has one. Yeah, the tax debt one, I just keep thinking those are going to go away, but they just keep changing their tactics on it.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. There was one thing that I did. What is it? It was the DID. It was with numbers. And I'm trying to find it in here. I don't remember what DID stands for, and hopefully
It stands for direct inward dialing. If I remember my
that's the area code spoofing.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah,
which is something that was really prevalent, kind of in the era around 2014, 2015, and then sort of went away for a while. It was interesting. It was a tactic that I think people got wise to. And then kind of disappeared, but has made a resurgence over the past year, which is very interesting. And it's an interesting tactic because there are, again, for the audience, the idea of this is that if you receive a phone call from the same area code as your phone, so
you're more apt to answer it.
Phone, right? You're more apt to answer it. But where it started to fall apart before, and kind of still falls apart, is if you're a transplant, right? If you're from a different part of the country than where you currently live,
right?
You'll get these. I'll get these spam calls. My telephone maps, my phone number maps all the way back to Seattle, and I'll get calls now on my phone from random Seattle area codes, and it's like it's like, unless it's a friend of mine who is in my contacts, I don't have any business with anybody up there anymore. So there's no way I'm answering it. So, in those situations, it just kind of falls flat.
And that's interesting. You said you guys are starting to see that coming back, because I do remember that years ago that they would specifically make it look like it's coming from the same area code because you would be more apt to answer it. But it was interesting because it said that they purchase these direct inward dial numbers by the millions.
Yes.
And that's one of the conversations, that I have is people will say, well, I just block the number. And it's like, well, that's one way to do it, but you're going to be constantly blocking numbers because I actually said thousands, right? They're buying numbers by the thousands. But now I can say millions because it's in your report. To try to trick people. So
it's very easy for them to do. They're very inexpensive. To your point, they use one number, whether they need to use it 2 times or they get lucky and they can use it 500 before they see that people aren't answering it or it's being blocked. Then they just move to the next number. It's very easy to do. It's all done, programmatically. It's not like humans making those decisions. They're, they're monitoring how. It's funny. Just like legitimate businesses, they're illegitimate businesses, but they still are run like businesses. So they are tracking how many of their calls get through, what's the hang up rate, all of those sorts of things, and they have their own metrics and KPIs so that when it gets to a certain point and they know that that number is not effective anymore, computer flips a switch and goes to a new number and they're back off and running again. And just, it's rinse and
Very
repeat.
quickly. Yeah. In a matter of seconds. You have a bunch of graphs in here where it talks about the seasonal nature of robocalls. And so like Medicare, they're going to come all throughout the year, but you see a huge spike in October, November because of the annual enrollment.
Absolutely.
And then you have tax debt robocalls, right? They happen, throughout the year, but they increase starting the beginning of the year and they go up through, tax season through April. And then you just see a huge drop off until the next. So that's quite interesting that you track them like that. Like roofing contractors, it shows that there's a big spike in the fall, which would make sense because people would want to have their roofs checked and fixed before, in parts of Arizona, northern Arizona, before a lot of the rain and the snow hits, right?
Yeah.
And then the solar panels, you see a lot of it starting in March, April, and then it's really high all through the summer because that's when you're going to have the majority of the sun. So that's quite interesting. But your area code spoofing, that was by year. It kind of laid flat for 21, 22. And it really, like you said, 24 and 25, it's increased a lot since then.
It's crazy.
Another section in here you guys talk about are data breaches.
Yeah.
And this is just crazy. We talk about data breaches. One of the things we like to let people know, I think a good start to the whole scam conversation is, well, how does your information even get out there? Because I think a lot of older adults are just shocked, I guess is a good word, if they were able to see how much of their information is actually out online. And a big way, so we're like, well, how does it get out there? Well, a big way are these hacks and breaches, right? And it's like there's nothing that you can do to prevent the hacks and breaches. It's on the companies, right? To have, and I'm not trying to say companies are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They are. It's just a 24/7 game with these fraudsters to try to keep them out of the systems because they're just getting so smart. But we do tell them what you can control is the information you give to these companies. Right. And this is where their healthy skepticism comes in. If they're asking for some sensitive information and you don't understand why they need it or how they're going to use it, you need to ask the question because you need to make sure you completely understand why they need it before you agree to give it over. But there was over 3,300 data breaches just in 2025. And what's it? 79. Well, that's up 79% compared to 2020. And that 2/3 of the breaches listed social security numbers as exposed information. Wow. And then 1/3 of the breach notifications listed bank accounts. Wow. I mean, driver's license numbers that, it's these fraudsters, they have fake IDs all over the place, but 1/3 of them listed bank account numbers. Wow.
Yep.
That's crazy. But I just, I thought that was a really good statistic because that's how a lot of our information gets out there.
Absolutely. And it's, and the problem with that, I mean, one of the things we tell people is basically assume your data has been compromised more than once. Like assume that somebody out there knows a lot more about you than you want them to know, or you think that they know. That's kind of the first bit. And the second bit is what all of that does is that makes the scams that do come to your phone much more dangerous. And because in the past, say 5 years ago, people
it was a shot in the dark.
People called you up and tried to trick you into giving that information away. Now they have that information. So they're going to call you. They're going to present that information to you like
make
they
it
are
all the more believable.
Bank, right? They have the last four, maybe your whole social security number. They have your bank account. So they're going to say, hi, I'm John Jones calling from Federal Bank of
Right.
Iowa about
Yeah.
your bank number 1234567 8. Can you please confirm that the last four of your social are 1234? Now, all of those things that normally, that healthy skepticism we're programmed to kind of fight back with, now all of a sudden they've bypassed that and they're straight into our emotional response. Like,
Oh,
bang,
absolutely.
they have my number, they have my
They
four
know
socials.
that must
They
be
must
them.
they must be real. What has
Right.
happened? Well, we're
Right.
calling about this $562 purchase. I didn't make a $562 purchase,
Yep.
right? And immediately they've got you on the greased skids
Yep.
to potentially becoming another victim of crime. And
Right.
it's it's terrifying, honestly,
Oh,
how
it is,
easy it is
because
for them to do that.
right. And a lot of banks have put a lot of safeguards in place, right? And I always say technology has its place, but it's not the end all be all to prevent these scams, because scammers are really good at using social engineering to get you to bypass your technology safeguards. And just to continue on with the example you were giving, they would be like, well, we need to verify that this is you before
Mhm.
we give you any more information. And that's exactly what a bank or a company would do
Yep.
before they just gave out information. If you're legitimately talking to them and they're like, well, we're going to send you a code and you need to read it back to us, right? That's how you verify. Well, that's how the legitimate bank or company
Yep.
would verify. Well, they're taking that and they're using it through social engineering against you to get you to give up that code, right? So
Exactly.
they're not actually breaking into your account through fraud means. They're using the social engineer. And the only thing that's going to combat against social engineering and those types of tactics is education.
Yeah.
Because they'll have more technology, but then scammers figure out how to use it to their advantage.
That's right.
So one thing you mentioned in here under scammers are moving to texting. You say fraudsters are quick to adapt. I really like that, because they are constantly changing, right? Like I talk about, like the grandparent scam, you get a phone call and they never knew if you had grandkids. Well, then through a lot of online stuff, they figure that out. They know their names, but then people are like, well, it's not their voice. Well, guess what? Now with AI and voice cloning, it's their voice. So they're just constantly changing. What was I gonna? I think that was all I had. Tell us a little bit more about you said you guys work with businesses and consumers. So let's look at the consumer part of what you guys have to offer.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So our consumer stuff is, we do a lot of things. So the first is, regardless of whether you are a, quote unquote, paying customer of ours, we have a ton of material on our website at nomorobo.com/fraudfighters that is just educational. It's like you said, education is an important part of this. And that stuff's free to everybody, right? We believe enough in this mission that, we produce instructional videos. We take a lot of the examples we get in terms of the calls that come into us, and we basically put them on our website so you can listen to what these people say and how they say it and how confident they are. And so all of that, things like our fraud report, so we have a lot of just public service information that we publish and we keep there and we update it regularly. We're doing 3 or 4 posts a week based on whatever the newest things are that are hitting our website that people can just go and check out and listen to. We have a tool. We have a new tool we just launched within the past couple of weeks that we call Scam Detector, which is basically designed, and again, totally free. It's designed to help you identify scams. So whether that's a text message that you receive, you can cut and paste it in there and we'll tell you what we think might be good or bad about it. Maybe it's a QR code you saw somewhere asking for donations for pets in need or something like that. You can take a picture of that QR code, put it in there, and we'll tell you if it goes to where it says it's really going, or maybe it goes somewhere else.
Oh, nice.
You can look up phone numbers there, and we'll tell you everything that we know about a particular phone number. So there's lots of stuff that you can do there. And then our business is, of course, we have a couple of phone applications for both Android and iOS. And what we do with those is what we talked about earlier. We, try to keep the bad calls from getting to you. We try to make sure that the good calls get to you. And, we give you as much protection as we can so that, the nuisance of the spam calls and the risk of the scam and fraud calls, goes away, and you can use your phone with a lot more confidence and a lot less interruptions and annoyance.
Got it. Okay. Now, you mentioned Android and iOS. Do any of your products for consumers work on landlines?
We do have a product that works on landlines. It's basically up to your landline carrier, though, as to whether or not they make it available. So we have, we have a handful of VoIP providers around the country that use our service. There are probably the majority of them do not use our service, but it's a type of thing that if it's something your listeners would want to see on their landline phone, they can always, of course, call the customer service reps or whomever at their VoIP company and bother them and say, hey, you should talk to these Nomorobo guys and get this added.
Now, you said VoIP, so that's the voice over internet.
Yes.
All right. So, and this is going to be, so voice over internet, I have that platform for R.O.S.E, because we don't actually have a physical office. So I use the voice over internet for the phone numbers, but I actually have a landline here at my house.
Yeah. So for
are landlines considered voice over internet or no?
Generally not. No. So if it's like copper wire phone lines, those basically we can't get involved with. Really, nobody can except the phone company themselves, just because of the way the technology works. So yeah, if it touches internet at some point, like Verizon, Fios, and Cox, and all those types of companies, those are things that we can interact with if the carrier provides it. But regular traditional copper wire landline, we cannot.
Which is the old school landline.
Yep, the old school.
Actual physical phone with a cord that you can only walk and talk as long as the cord allows you.
Exactly.
Yes, those ones.
Memories of my childhood.
Yes. So for those, you're saying there really isn't any, the only people that can do anything with that are those actual phone providers.
Exactly.
Okay. But if it's a voice over internet, you guys work with some of those companies. They would just have to check with whoever they use for that.
That's correct.
I'm going to check with the one I use and see if they use you guys, because I did send them the company that I use. I found out from a few people over the last year or so that when I call them, it comes up as spam likely. And so I emailed the customer support and I said, how do I get that to stop? I'm not a spam likely. I'm a legitimate business. Right. And they basically said that there really isn't anything that they can do to stop that.
Yeah, which is unfortunately true. And this is one of the artifacts of the way that the bad guys go through all these phone numbers. They'll use a phone number like we were discussing earlier 10 times, it gets flagged as scam or spam. They move on, but getting that, and then at some point that number is going to get resold to someone. And
that's true.
The company that's reselling it is supposed to go through and clean up any of those flags or anything. But the problem is that everybody flags phone calls differently, right? So, the company that's selling the phone number may clear up the flag on their side, but Verizon may still have it flagged. Consumer Cellular may still have it flagged. We may still have it flagged.
Right. So it's whoever I'm calling, their service provider might have it flagged, because they're going to flag any number that has any relationship to the word scam.
Exactly.
And so then that's how mine gets flagged, is because we have scam all over our information, but they're forgetting that it's scam prevention.
Exactly. And and there are, unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, like, this is so prevalent that there are businesses that have literally sprung up around this. Like you can go to one of these, what we call, I guess, reputation management businesses.
Yes.
And what they
Yes.
do is they monitor your phone number on, all the mobile carriers, as many, landline carriers as they can find, and other vendors and whatnot. And, they'll make sure for you that you get those flags cleared up and they stay clean over time. But of course,
Right.
you're going to have to pay for that. And
Exactly. And that's like they'll get rid of negative reviews
Yep.
and all of that stuff. And it's the same. There's a lot of companies out there that you can pay a subscription to that will wipe your information off, and they'll continually monitor because it will pop back up again. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yes.
So, do you guys, with your getting back to your consumer products that you have for the robocalls and the texting, do you guys have different tiered plans? Like, do you have a free version that does some of the things, but then you get into a paid subscription where then there's a lot more features to it? Or
yes, we do. So we have 3 tiers, and it's really 2 tiers, but the second tier has 2 different flavors. So we have a tier we call Basic, which is pretty inexpensive. I want to say right now, I think it's $3.99 a month or $19.99 a year. That provides the basic, phone number blocking. It provides you personal allow lists and block lists, and it will also protect your texts. And then the next tier up from that is what we call Nomorobo Max, which has all of the stuff I just mentioned, but it also provides that call screening functionality that I was talking about earlier. So that adds in, that kind of real-time call screening and call protection. And then above that, we have what we call Nomorobo Family. Nomorobo Family is just Nomorobo Max, but it allows you to use it on up
multiple
to 4 phone numbers. Yep. And
you said up to 4 phone numbers?
Up to 4, yes. So you can, once the person who sets up the subscription gets themselves set up, they can invite 3 other numbers. And we call it family, but they don't have to be family. They could be friends. They could be whoever. Basically, it just allows you to use.
You're not going to go in and verify that they're actually blood related.
No, would be silly. And a lot of people, right? So that's something that we have seen. There are a lot of people that will use 1 or 2 of those phone numbers that they have allocated to give to their parents. So that, basically they're, it's funny. The joke is, the 20-year-olds stay on their parents' cell phone plans for forever. This is the opposite. This is, the kids can have a plan that they put their parents on so that their parents are protected from, these scam and fraud calls.
Right. Right. Okay. So how would someone find out more information about what you guys do and your plans that are available?
Yeah, nomorobo.com is the place to go. So if they go to nomorobo.com, they can learn about the products. They can see all that educational material that I mentioned before, kind of see what things are that we have to offer, and they can sort of take it from there.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate all of this information. I'm going to definitely check out on the voice over internet provider that I have if they work with you guys to make that available. Maybe it'll cut down on some of the spam phone calls that I get on that line. But anyways, lots of great information. I thank you so much for coming on. And it sounds like you guys are really at the forefront of this type of technology. And I really like how you noticed you started to see an uptick in text message. So you said we need to get some product out here that's going to really help with the text messaging as well.
Yeah, we have to constantly adapt. Every time the bad guys do it, we have to do it too.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you again. I really appreciate all this information. All right.
Awesome. Thanks
so much.
Take
care. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. That's all we have for today. As Matt said, if you want to check out what they have, they've got a lot of educational information, but you can check out their plans and see how their product works. It's nomorobo.com. That's N-O as in no, mo, M-O, M as in Mary, O, and then Robo, ROBO.com. Get on there, check it out, see if it's something that might work for you. Don't forget, go to our website, roseadvocacy.org. Social media links are there. Scroll down to the bottom. On the left is our emailed newsletter. On the right is signing up for the mailed one. And click on the events tab. The first one listed there is we've got an event coming up on October 24th, champagne and chocolate tasting experience. It's going to be a fun-filled night, and it's our fall fundraising event. So check that out as well to find out more information. And Brian is going to be with you guys for the next couple weeks. All right. I'll see you back in September. Thank you.
Well, that's all the knowledge for this episode. Tune in every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time on K4HD Radio at k4hd.com as Joyce explores a variety of knowledge so you have the power to make scam protection your healthy habit. And until then, feel free to reach out to Joyce and let's talk about scams.